The subject of today's episode is one of the most brutal dictators in modern history. Ruling over Uganda for 8 years, this man not only took the newly independent country by force, but expelled many of those that kept the whole place running, eliminating the courts, destroying the economy, and killing thousands at will, all while enriching himself and his closest supporters. And those that opposed him could be dismembered, fed to crocodiles, or even have their frozen heads used as table centerpieces at parties. Going by such names, most he gave himself, like the Lion of Africa, the Last King of Scotland, the Machete, Black Hitler, and his favorite, His Excellency President for Life Field Marshal Al-Haji Dr. Idi Amin Dada VC DSO MC CBE, Lord of all the beasts and the earth, fishes of the sea, and the conqueror of the British Empire in Africa in general and Uganda in particular. But the most fitting nickname is probably the Butcher of Uganda. Today we cover Idi Amin. I'm Kevin Young.
And I'm the leader of the People's Democratic Republic of Daniel.
And this is Torture.
I always said that's what I call a country. The People's Democratic Republic of Dan.
Yeah, he's this guy is fucking something else.
Those names are brilliant. Oh my god, it's like getting the worst list of Xbox username handles. You know, like, you know when you do the auto generator thing on them.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, like fucking spicy gasoline and things like that. Like, you know, it's just, yeah.
Let's see. The ones Microsoft gave us were Peppy Cracker and Runic Bat. Runic Bat's not bad, but Peppy Cracker, I don't know, that's on the verge of racism.
That's just ridiculous.
I've
had my one since day one, and it was a spelling error on my part from a nickname that I was given by an old friend of mine.
Yeah.
Which I will not be giving out just about yet.
Yeah, I mean, you won't be able to find us on there. We haven't been on there for fucking forever. We're not even on Xbox Live or anything like that. But yeah, I thought that was weird. They wouldn't let us pick our own names. It picked it for us. Yeah, fine, whatever. I don't give a shit. So first off, thanks to everyone who went and checked out the merch store and the Patreon. That means the world to us. But we have quite the story to go here. So let's get into it real quick. Do you have Dan? You ever heard of? How much do you know about the history of Uganda?
Nothing really. I'm pretty sure there's stuff that I would know, but kind of one of those things, when you don't realize,
Yeah.
If you get me, I'm pretty sure if I looked some stuff up, I'd be like, oh yeah, that happened in Uganda. Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those stories where, after World War II, all the European nations kind of decided to give up control of a lot of these pretty much put together countries in Africa, and like the second Uganda and other countries in Africa, but the second Uganda became an independent nation, people started fighting over who was going to rule it with an iron fist. It's like, I want to be dictator. No, I want to be dictator. It's like, I mean like that easily. So we got a lot of that to cover, and it's going to get a little gruesome at one point. Not Rape of Nanking gruesome quite, but it's going to get, So Idi Amin Dada Oumee, Oumee, There's a lot of these types of names. I'm going to try and get through them the best I can. I looked up the pronunciation for all of them. I think I got most of them good, but there's still some of them that are a little like too many vowels at once. Anyway, Idi Amin Dada Aomi was born May 7th, 1928, around 4 a.m. Maybe. No one fucking knows. He never told anybody his biography, and he never authorized anyone to write it. So no one really knows what his actual birthday is. Plus, he was a habitual liar, and he changed the year depending on who he talked to and what he needed. He went as early as 1923 and as late as 1928. So who the fuck knows? Most people put it somewhere like 1925. There is a biographer that claims the May 7th, 1928 date is correct, that Edie told him, or he learned about it from one of his many children. But I have a hard time taking his word for it. Most people say 1925, so we'll just go sometime in 1925 or whatever. Okay. Now, what we do know for sure, though, is that he was born in the capital city of Kampala. Or not. Again, the guy's fucking lying. He lies about that stupid shit all the time. He told people he was born in the capital city, or people assume he was born there because for him being born in a small village was beneath him or his stature. But being born in the capital city somehow put him in a better class of people out.
He's actually from Des Moines, Iowa,
this guy,
or something stupid.
Yeah, this guy's 2 Fruit Loops short of a bowl. All right, most people believe based on his parents and on his upbringing, that he was probably born in Koboko, a town in the northern region of Uganda. But either way, he was born in Uganda at some point between 1923 and 1928. If that helps you any.
We know this guy existed. Or exists.
At some point, he was born.
He was born.
That's all we know.
In some part of a gigantic nation, of a gigantic
continent. Yes, exactly. He was either born at this part of it or this part of it sometime in the 1900s. I don't know.
Oh.
So,
that's that mystery solved.
Okay, he was the second born but first son to his mother, Asa Ati of the Lugbara tribe, and father Andreas Nebari, a member of the Kakwa tribe. Now, both tribes falling under the umbrella of Nubian, and that's how Edie will see himself and where he will direct his loyalty through his life. His parents split up shortly after the birth of his younger brother, when Edie was very young. Andreas pretty much just abandoning them, leaving Asa to raise the 3 of them on her own. Now, apparently there was a rumor that Andreas wasn't Edie's real father, and it led to the divorce and the rejection of Edie by his father for the next 30 years. Now, obviously, after Edie becomes, big and famous and everything, Andreas wants to get back into his life, be like, oh, yeah, no, yeah, you're my son, yeah, but for like the next 30 years, he wants nothing to do with him. Edie's siblings would die not long after Andreas moved, and I honestly couldn't find a reason. I looked around, nothing told me like how they died. They just died. So
this guy is like, everything seems so far to be like as elusive as Master Yoda, almost. Like, it's like, did he actually have a father? Did this guy even exist? Did his siblings exist?
He came down in a UFO and popped up out of nowhere. I don't know. And all of a sudden his siblings are dead. It's like the beginning of a bad horror movie. But the 2, Edie and his mother, ended up living with her relatives near Simuto. Simuto, where he reared goats for a couple years. Then, when he was probably around 10 or 12, possibly, he moved to the home of Sheikh Ahmed Hussein, where he learned to recite the Quran.
Or 25, depending on what year he was born.
He could have been a full-grown adult by now. I don't know.
It wasn't goats, it was cows or giraffes or humans.
So a couple years later, he went to Bombo to live with an uncle and tried to get into primary school. But Nubians weren't allowed. Obviously angry about this, he joined in on the Nubian riots against discrimination in the 1940s, his first dalliance with fighting for a cause, and possibly his first thoughts of, no one will help me, I have to help myself. About a year later, he was able to join the Garaya Islamic school at Bombo, and again excelled at reciting the Quran. However, he left after only a few years and only got a 4th grade English language education. And that's all the education he's ever going to get. That's it. 4th grade education.
Better education than I have, or better grasp of English language than I have.
So he would work odd jobs after that. He was a hat and coat attendant at the Imperial Hotel when a British Army officer was impressed by his mannerisms and his size. Idi was a large individual, about 6'4", 270 when he was fully grown. They recruited him into the British Army in Uganda. Now, you might be wondering, why would a British soldier recruit a Ugandan into the army? Well, I said before, pretty much all of Africa was colonized and owned by one European country or another. Britain, France, Germany, Belgium, Spain, Portugal, Italy. Pretty much owned all of Africa after 1900.
Yeah, Holland, most of the south.
Yeah. So Uganda fell under British rule. Now, there's a long history lesson that I could get into here about how and why the European nations took control of most of Africa and why Asians, specifically Indians, made up a large portion of the population of Uganda, and why Uganda doesn't even make sense as a country because of all the different ethnic and religious groups that live in the area. It didn't exactly mesh, and how it could have been mapped out better to encompass like-minded groups of people. And I'm sure everyone listening to the scream going, no, not another fucking history lesson. So I won't, but I could.
So we're going to. Here we go, kids. Strap on your seatbelts. This is it.
Not another fucking history lesson.
That's the torture element.
Podcast. But yeah. So Idi served at the Maga barracks in Jinja. Some of the words that I have to say for this episode are going to sound like I'm making them up to sound as African as possible. I swear I'm not.
Some of them sound like you're covering something to do with Japan at times. That's funny. I was sitting there, he's like, Surrogato or something. I was like, that sounds like Japan. It's like Kiss of My Ass Street, whatever it's called. That was all.
So Idi served at the Maga barracks in Jinja in the laundry and as a cook while he trained around 1947. While there, he showed his proclivity for athletics. He was an impressive swimmer, rugby player, and boxer. He would even go on to win the Uganda light heavyweight boxing championship in 1951 and would hold it for 9 straight years.
That's when he was recruited by the Jinja Ninjas.
The Jinja Ninjas?
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
He would also play for the Nile RFC rugby team in the 50s as well. He told some that he was selected as a replacement by the East Africa Rugby Union team for their 1955 tour match against the British Lions. This was, of course, a lie. But after training and cooking, he was then transferred to Kenya for his real military service. Now, this is when he joined the KAR, or the British King's African Rifles. According to him, at this time, he served in the Burma campaign of World War II. This was, of course, a lie. The Burma campaign ended in 1945. He wasn't even in active duty yet. So you can see the pattern that has been growing with this man for a while.
Oh, that's brilliant. Was he not like the quarterback also for like the Green Bay Packers at some stage? Or
yes, I believe he won the Super Bowl. He won the very first Super Bowl ever.
Yeah, he got bronze, gold, and silver in one single Olympic event at one stage. Because
he just stood in the one podium and they gave him all three, and played. I think they played Pink Floyd instead of the Ugandan national anthem, because he said, "Well, I wrote this song, so play this."
That was all back in the 1940s as well, though, wasn't it?
That's right.
Before Pink Floyd were even
before Pink Floyd, before the
he predicted Pink Floyd. God, sounds like such a hero. I wish I was around to witness all this.
1949, his unit heads to northern Kenya to fight Somali rebels. A few years later, he was sent to fight the Kenyan Land and Freedom Army, aka the Mau Mau rebels. Now, through his impressive showing in these battles and negotiations, Idi was promoted to corporal. He quickly began to garner reputation as a ruthless soldier and steadily rose through the military ranks. By the end of 1953, he would be known as Sergeant Amin. 1959, he became Effendi Class 2, which is the equivalent to a warrant officer, which is the highest rank possible for a black African in the British Army at that time. A couple years later, he became a lieutenant, the highest rank of any African in the military. He was also, during this time, sent to have further training in Scotland. Amin would absolutely fall in love with the country. Even after his relationship with the white Imperials turned sour, he will love it forever, and at one point even have real aspirations in becoming the king.
That's where that nickname came from earlier.
The King of Scotland. There's a movie. I'm sure when we get to the pop culture part of it, you bring it up. But so just the real short Cliff Notes versions. Later on, after he's control of Uganda and he's, his relationship with Britain has soured significantly. There's some paratroopers in Scotland that are freedom fighting, trying to win their independence from the English. They call him up because they heard how much he loves Scotland, and they're like, "Hey, what can you do? Can you help us? Give us some inspiration. Tell us what you did." Really, they were hoping for weapons and soldiers to come over there. They were hoping that he would send fighters. They were hoping that he would send weapons, and all he really told them was, "I stand with you. Good luck. I hope you do it. And whenever you win, let me know, and I'll be your king." And of course, it never happened. But he told everybody he was the last king of Scotland, or he told everybody he was the uncrowned king of Scotland. Yeah.
Oh, talk about having aspirations.
See what he had. I mean, it could have happened, I suppose.
After that desperate, maybe. Never know. You never know.
So now it was about this time that Amin and his brigade was sent to the border of Uganda and Kenya to look at the uptick in cattle raiding. It's here where we first see Amin's true brutality and a hint of what's to come for his eventual rule of Uganda. Amin and his troops went to the area and absolutely massacred these people. Civilians. It's not like they went there and just took on soldiers. They massacred just regular people living in a town.
Of course they did.
So when the British authorities in Nairobi exhumed the bodies, they found people had been beaten, tortured, beheaded, and even buried alive.
Taking some notes from the Japanese, you see, that's what he's doing.
I mean, it's not too long after that.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up though. When you think about
yeah,
why? What's the point? I don't understand how some people work.
I think it was one of those things where it's like, who is stealing the cattle? Who's doing what with the cattle? Oh, we don't know. Oh, they know something. Just start killing people until we find out. And there's no saying if they actually found out who was doing the cattle raiding or not. But a lot of people died because of it. But you might think to yourself, well, this will stop his rise in the ranks. He'll be court-martialed and shamed for what he did. Of course, if you know anything about this show, you would understand that that's just not how it works. Under normal circumstances, you would be correct to think that. Normally, yes, a soldier in charge of a brigade that goes and commits these atrocities would be court-martialed, even thrown in jail.
They promoted him again.
Well,
leader of the world.
You're not too far off. At the same time that this was going on, Uganda was on the verge of gaining its independence from Britain. And the colonial governor, Sir Frederick Crawford, extremely English name, didn't want a scandal emerging around only one of two native Ugandan colonial officers. So he and the new prime minister, Milton Obote, decided to stamp down the story of Amin's atrocities to save face. So there's no real punishment or reprimand for what he did. They're just kind of like, shouldn't have done that, but if you're going to do it, you did it at the perfect time. Nobody say anything to anybody, and let's just move on. He got off scot-free.
Lucky boy.
Scot-free.
Lucky boy.
Yeah. And Obote and Amin would come to form a sort of relationship over this time. Obote saw Amin as an ally. He promoted him even further in his regime. So, yes, you're right. He does take quite a bit of control.
That's so ridiculous that you would think about it. That's it. I'm going to go out now, start slaughtering people. Might be voted in as president. You never know. Can't wait for next election here, and be like, "Why? What form do you stand upon? Bodies of my enemies and public, the general Joe public."
Well, if I don't need
a pint of milk from a shop, take out the whole town.
Well, if I don't need to say it, there's not another election. The stuff that
Fair
happens,
enough.
the stuff that's going to happen. The people in Uganda,
I see where this is going.
They have no say in it. Whatever happens is what happens. They're just stuck with it. So, at this time, while Uganda was getting its independence, things were still a little volatile. See, Uganda was a made-up country, put together by the English. So they just kind of drew the lines where they wanted to draw the lines, and, okay, this is what we own. It encompassed several different tribes, ethnic groups, and religions. Many of these groups saw independence differently from one another. Some people wanted a centralized government. Some people wanted more of a spread out, like we'll govern ourselves. Everybody kind of wants something different.
Yeah.
And Obote, the new prime minister of Uganda, saw this and decided to suspend the constitution and extend his power into what could only be called a dictatorship.
He pulled an Emperor Palpatine on it.
Yeah, pretty much. He's like, oh, none of you guys are getting along. Tell you what, fuck it. This constitution they worked so hard on putting out there so we could all live peacefully, gonna throw that in the trash. And I'm just gonna do everything myself.
It's just him sitting there.
But here's the thing. There was actually already a president of Uganda at the time. Obote was prime minister, but Mutesa II, king of Buganda, was technically the president. So...
not anymore, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is all going to get kind of messy later. For now, Obote would run the country, and Amin would be sort of a right-hand man. Now, Amin would, by 1970, be the commander of all Ugandan armed forces under Obote. This meteoric rise to power was almost 100% due to his complicity and participation in a gold and ivory smuggling ring that he and Obote were enriching themselves and their accomplices in the Congo. It's always about.
I was gonna say this. Everything so far it sounds like almost like every. I don't want to say like espionage or Tom Clancy's type bad guy or James Bond bad guy all rolled into one right now. Like, you know, it's just.
Yeah, they're just you're reading up a synopsis of the bad guy. He's like, oh, well, he controlled power during upheaval right after the country became independent. And then he started making money off of smuggling gold and ivory. What's next? He has the nuclear codes and he wants $1 billion.
Yeah, he has sharks with freaking laser beams on their head. That's what he gets next. That would be absolutely brilliant. Oh, see here in Wikipedia, own sharks with laser beams. There you go. Score. Check.
So the Ugandan parliament they found out about this smuggling ring, and they charged Amin with misappropriating $350,000 worth of gold and ivory from guerrillas in the Congo he was supposed to supply with arms. It's kind of a back and forth that Uganda will have with the Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was, I believe, Zaire at the time, and Tanzania, which is to the south. They kind of, it's not a friendly relationship they all have with one another.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah. But once they decided to charge him in, he had troops arrest the ministers in parliament who raised the issue, and then Obote appointed himself as president. So I'm not just prime minister now. I'm not just the dictator. I am the president now, even though there is already still a president.
Yeah, that's just... You can imagine him doing it standing next to him. And man's just like, hey, what are you going to do, huh? What are you going to do?
Well, what he does is a couple months later, Obote sends tanks to attack the palace of Mutsai II. The king fled the country, leaving Obote in charge of the government and Amin in charge of the military. So that's pretty much it. King's like, fuck this, I'm out. King ends up dying while he's gone. Didn't say if it had anything to do with the tanks, but he does end up dying while he's gone. King fled the country. Bote's in charge. Amin has the military. But countries like this, really the person who's in charge is the person who controls the military. So the person who controls the person who controls the military, something eventually is going to happen. Because the military...
age-old thing.
Yeah.
As old as time itself.
Story as old as time.
Yeah. The English. The English. That's what it is. The English are to blame. John knows it was an English soldier that brought him on board. Yet again.
It's always the fucking British. It's always the fucking
You hear that
British.
smudge? It was the English.
So the military isn't where Amin wanted to stop. He wanted it all. So for the next few years, Amin would recruit and fill the military with those from the Kekwa and Nubi areas of northern Uganda bordering the Sudan, his own ethnic people and fellow Muslims. By filling the military with soldiers from this area, Amin was consolidating his control of the army in advance of a possible seizure of power. On top of this, Amin was trying to get support for his eventual coup from Britain and Israel, which he did in spirit. He's like, hey, I'm gonna try and take over the country. And they're like, you do you, bud. We're all for you. But we're not sending you any troops. We're not sending you any weapons. So if you do it, great.
I'm just waiting for the moment now where the cast from the Fast and the Furious show up, and free Uganda with the power of family and fast cars and spurious gear changes. Yeah.
And a Mustang flying through a skyscraper. We saved Uganda. It's just Forrest Whitaker playing Amin, just like, no!
Family.
So Obote got hints of what was coming and decided to put a stop to it. In 1970, Obote removed Amin from commander of the military and appointed himself to the role. Then he planned on getting Amin arrested with charges of financial misconduct. But he dragged his feet. Now, Amin had learned what Obote wanted to do and decided it was time to move. So on January 25th, 1971, Obote was at a meeting of the Commonwealth Nations in Singapore. Amin struck, launching a military coup on the capital city, securing the capital and the major communication outlets. Before Obote even knew what was happening, Amin had announced to the country that he was now in power. And honestly, the people were relieved. Obote was seen as corrupt and over the past few years had become more ruthless himself. He had a secret police that would go around the country and take out people who stood against him, or they would investigate people for things that they didn't really need to be investigated for. He was doing just as shady shit as Amin was. He just wasn't as complicit or didn't give the order to kill near as many people as what Amin will. It's a lot. By the way,
you know you're into some shady stuff when you have a secret police.
Yes.
Getting involved. As soon as you get something like that, it's like, ooh. Cross that line now.
Yeah. Now, Amin was seen as almost a savior from their overlord at the time. He told everyone that he only planned on holding control of the country for a few weeks or months as the government got squared away. Then they would have elections. He declared himself the new president just a week later, and he will hold power for the next 8 years. So, no elections. No, you're just kind of stuck with what you get. I don't know. Tell you.
Imagine if y'all had Trump for, 3 times longer than he was there for.
We had him for 4.
Twice then, sorry, yeah. I was thinking 3 for some reason. I don't know. It just seemed to...
And a lot of people feel like he kind of took that. He wasn't elected then. He kind of took it, and anyway, by force, but it wasn't a force thing. It's because the Electoral College.
The Electoral, it's such a ridiculous system.
Yeah, it's stupid.
So who received the most amount of votes? This sort of person. No, let's not let them in. No.
I mean, that's what who got the most votes? Hillary. Who won? Trump. It's a ridiculous way that we do it. I understand why they set it up like that in the fucking 1700s, but it doesn't make sense now. So. But
like many things that were set up hundreds of years ago that don't make sense now, that we will not get into now.
It's almost like things should change as things change. But,
Quote of the week.
So what took over Uganda was nothing more than a military dictatorship. The courts were almost done away with and replaced by military tribunals. Amin's supporters in the military were all given high-ranking offices in the military or were appointed to a range of senior political offices and civil jurisdictions. Absolutely none of these people had any experience or knowledge or right being in the new positions that they had. Again, like Trump being president. It's no purpose in having that job because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. But, you supported me, so I'm going to make you, Chief Justice or fucking whatever, even though, a year ago you were picking up cow turds out in the fucking field. It's just pretty much what it is. He then began to purge the military and the civilian populations of those that might hinder his rule.
Well,
thousands.
Yes,
as you do. Yeah. As you do. That's obviously what you do. I took control and you just get rid of everybody else. Thousands were removed from their posts in the military and replaced with those that would be loyal. And when I say removed, I mean, you should know I don't mean that they were just sent home with a pension. Yeah. They were permanently removed. Quick bullet to the head.
From life.
However, it is told about 32 of these troops, and I would imagine it was probably a lot more, but about 32 of these troops were placed in a small prison cell together and then blown up with dynamite.
That's an interesting way to do it.
It's one way to do it.
Dear Lord. It's like they're just trying to come up with different ways to get rid of them. It's like, well, look, we shot 400 of them. It's getting kind of boring now. Let's come up with a new way. What do you think? We strapped a few of them with C4. Shot a couple of them with RPGs. We got a big box sitting over there we're doing nothing with. A few sticks of dynamite.
Some private standing over the corner. I got this stick of dynamite.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you want to do with it? I don't know. Put them in prison cells. In all, about 2/3 of the military would be purged in his first year. So, if that gives you any indication of...
2/3?
2/3 of the military.
hold on a second now. So he managed to seize control via a military coup.
Yeah, he had
only using 1/3 of the military or so thereabouts, because obviously 2/3 were against him.
He used a lot less than 1/3 because he controlled the military. So when he took over the capital,
it wouldn't have.
Everybody's like, all right, we see what's going on. A lot of them thought that he was going to actually push Obote out and then do what was right for the people and have elections or make it to where they weren't under the thumb of a ruthless dictator. And when he ended up not doing that,
bet you they felt pretty goddamn stupid.
Yeah, so when he would kill a group of troops, he just moved new people in that were loyal to him into their positions. So as 2/3 of the military was killed off, they were quickly filled back in with people he knew would be loyal to him. But that was just the military. As far as the civilians, around 20,000 Ugandans fled into Tanzania, just to the south, where Obote was also seeking asylum. Now, they tried to invade Uganda with around 1,500 guerrilla fighters to take an airport. So the plan is 1,500 guerrilla troops sneak into Uganda, into their airport.
Mm-hmm.
They take the airport, and then they move straight to the capital, take the capital, put Obote back in control. Everything's fine. However, Amin was privy to the plan and stopped them before they could even take over the airport.
He held them up at customs. That's what it was.
Yeah, it was very quick.
Passport,
they came in.
Please.
Yeah, Amin was there waiting, killed hundreds of these guerrilla fighters, and probably imprisoned and tortured the rest of them. So
that's just
what do you do? Still, many of Ugandans loved that he had taken over. He was this larger-of-life presence, very charismatic, what you see in dictators and in cult leaders.
Yeah.
They're charismatic. They trick you into loving them before they, make you wish you had never seen them before.
Oh, speaking of cult leaders, real quick, we were, I can't remember where the hell we were driving now. Myself and my wife were driving somewhere, and we passed by, pretty sure it was on the way home from our father's this weekend, and we saw in a town there was an entire gigantic church for lease. I'm seriously considering starting my own religion. Going in there, hey, how much do you want for rent?
Church,
we can start a movement.
Dance?
Yeah. The only dance. Yeah.
You buy it, you turn it into a strip club.
Oh yeah, that'd be pretty cool actually.
I love to see that when somebody buys a church and turns it into a bar or a strip club or something.
Well, yeah, there's one in Dublin called The Church. It was an old church that's turned into it's a bar and restaurant. It's actually really nice. It's actually a really nice bar. But,
churches are nice in general. So I would imagine they would probably make
great for music.
Yeah,
great acoustics. I've always wanted to have a converted church as a house, but yeah, I just thought it'd be kind of funny though. I could start up my own little religion and just create my own hymns. People just singing my name in weird ways, so it just sounds like
People pull out the hymn book and it's filled with Bush songs.
Yeah. Glycerine.
So Amin would waste no opportunity to shake hands, pose for pictures, and dance the traditional dances with the commoners. His informal personality made it seem like he really cared about the country. Even Amin's multiple marriages helped. His spouses were of various Ugandan ethnic groups. In addition to his 6 wives, it's alleged that he had a minimum of 30 mistresses around the country. But the biggest boost to his popularity came when he allowed King Mutesa's body to return to Uganda for burial in his homeland. He abolished Obote's secret police and granted amnesty to political prisoners. All of this very graciously. Look at me, look at how wonderful I am. I don't hold a grudge for anything. That shit's going to go down the tubes real quick. But, you got to get it started somewhere. So, usually with these types of coups, whenever you see the military take over a country, most of the world looks at it and goes, shit, this might not be good. most of the world saw this as a blessing. England and Israel both backed the coup, seeing Amin as easier to deal with than Obote, because that's how he put it off. He comes off as very easy to talk to, very one of the people, and that's how they get you. If there's a world leader who's very easy to talk to, very one with the people, very charismatic, you're probably going to get fucked. Don't trust that guy. That's just the way it is. Don't trust him. Amin presented himself as a unifier amongst the varying religions and ethnic groups in the country. He even met with the Prime Minister of Britain, Edward Heath, and had lunch at the palace. And he, of course, took this opportunity to return to Scotland to see his second favorite country. Honestly, possibly his first favorite country. I imagine if he actually would have got the King of Scotland job, he would have left Uganda in a New York minute, gotten up there, and he names a bunch of his kids. He gives them Scottish first names. He has one specific portion of the military in Uganda. Their uniform is a kilt. I mean, he fucking loves Scotland. I don't know what it is. I mean, Scotland's beautiful.
Haggis.
Yeah. It's a national dish now in Uganda.
He re-records the entire Ugandan national anthem using only bagpipes. Stuff that'd be goddamn hilarious.
I don't know what it is about Scotland that he loves so much, but I've never been to Scotland. I've seen pictures. It looks like an absolutely beautiful country. I'm sure the people are perfectly fine. But he has a hard on for Scotland. I don't know.
It's probably the accent,
It's a possibility. Scotland. It's a possibility. Now, while in London and during his trip to Tel Aviv, he requested weapons to arm his soldiers so he could remain in control. Both countries declined. See, both countries were becoming more aware of the man they had put their faith in to run Uganda. It did not take long. Because at about the same time as his London trip, two Americans, a journalist, Nicholas Stroh, and a sociology lecturer, Robert Seidel, were investigating some of the early political killings and decided to go to Mbara Army Barracks. They were told by many not to go. It's too dangerous. But they were Americans. And because we Americans are brought up through our entire history that we can do what we want and not be stopped because it's our right. Yes, Dan saluting. You can hear the national anthem playing behind. They decided to go. They decided to go anyways. They were, of course, murdered almost immediately.
Oh, naturally.
Yes.
I'm going to have to change my background photo now to my American photo thing that I have.
Just a waving American flag.
No, you'll see it.
Okay, I can't wait to see it.
I'm gonna send it to you. I'm gonna send it to you so I can save it. Anyway, sorry. Please continue.
Okay. So the American government launched an investigation and made it known to all that Amin's regime were the ones that murdered the men, setting a precedent of no trust in the dictator by other countries. So with England and Israel not wanting to help, Amin looked elsewhere, namely a one Colonel Muammar al-Gaddafi, the ruler of Libya. And if anybody knows anything about world history, might be going, oh no. Of course, in order to get Gaddafi's help, Amin would, America. Fuck
it's really poor quality, though.
That's all right. So some of America.
You can't see the picture of me. America.
So for those of you who can't see, it's an eagle carrying an American flag. However, this dashing eagle has your friend and mine, Dan's face.
Yeah, that's not all. You can't see the rest of it. I'm also shooting an assault rifle down at the ground. You just can't see it. I can't get it to fill this thing correctly. So I sent it to you on Facebook though. I'm sure we can put it on a T-shirt or something.
I see how I will put this on Instagram. America, let freedom ring.
I don't know how to resize it for the virtual background. That was the only problem.
That's fucking great.
Probably get sued by some guy who owns the rights to that picture or something.
Yeah,
like that. I don't care.
No.
It's your fault for putting it out there for me to use, pal.
So in order to get Gaddafi's help, Amin would have to tell him that about 70% of Uganda... Oh, well, no. Now you're sideways. There it is.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Amin would have to tell him that about 70% of Uganda was Muslim, when only about 6% were. So, more lies. But Gaddafi was convinced and decided to bring Uganda into the Organization of Islamic States. Amin promised to place limits on the religious freedoms of Christians in return for weapons. This is also when we see his hate for Jews come out. Of course they do, because every dictator obviously has to hate the Jews. He even goes as far as praising Hitler for his actions during World War II and the Holocaust, saying that killing 6 million Jews was a good idea.
Even those Jewish dictators don't like the Jews.
Yeah,
Apparently.
it's weird. So Amin soon took aim at those who would oppose him, specifically those in the Acholi and Longo ethnic groups, of which around 5,000 people just disappeared. It's funny how that happens. Yeah. Sometimes bodies would be found floating in the Nile. He also kicked out tens of thousands of Asian Ugandans, mostly those with Indian ancestry, leaving them to flee into Asia, or more than not, into England. England pretty much had this thing where the Indians came over from India to help build railroads and all this shit, and the English said, once Uganda's in an independent state, if you're living there, you have British citizenship now whenever you want it. So if you want to move to Britain, you can, hoping everybody would stay in Uganda. When he decides to kick all of them out of Uganda, a lot of them decide, we were told we can go to England, let's go. And the British are all like, oh, wait a minute.
They're happy now.
Kind of just, talking out our ass. But they took them up on the offer.
Yeah, there's massive amount of Indian people across in the UK. They're very thankful for them now, considering I think the number one thing eaten in the UK is Indian curry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah. That's where a lot of them came from. They actually came from Uganda. Thousands of Asian Ugandans purged into England during this time. But it didn't all go smoothly, obviously. Those that had to be forcibly exiled had almost all of their possessions taken away from them, and those that outright opposed the measure were dealt with even harsher. Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka, who vocally criticized Amin and the handling of the Asian community, was arrested and just a few days later executed. Now, this wasn't just the shot to the head type deal again. His nose, ears, and lips were cut off, followed by castration, disembowelment, and then set on fire. As just
pulled the wrong knife.
Fuck you.
That's what it was. He pulled the wrong knife every time. He needed that heart knife.
Got the basket.
He
He
got the
pulled
lips
it out
knife.
Nose.
Yeah, pulled out the willy knife.
Ears.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, balls. There you go. Yep.
Belly button. No.
It's the old Ling Chi.
Yeah.
Now, followed by the expulsion of the Asian Ugandans, the economy went into free fall. These Asians had run and owned many of the companies that kept the economy going. And once they were gone, Amin took control of them and, of course, gave them to his loyal supporters. None of them knew how to run a company. Half of them were illiterate.
It's like, hey, do you guys know how to run this Indian takeaway? Nope.
Well, we're talking.
Don't even know how to boil rice.
Factories, farms, shops.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like 500 or so thousand Asian Ugandans living in Uganda at the time. So a fraction of the actual population. But they owned the majority of the businesses.
Yeah, should have been like they back then, and there's still an awful lot of it now to do with Asia. It's like peak of industry. It did anything, you know what I mean, to do with industrial stuff. Like that's the go-to.
Yeah, they ran all of that. So machines broke down, farms stopped producing, factories halted production. The Uganda was known for its concrete production back then. That shut down, and the economy pretty much just came to a standstill. People, all of a sudden, inflation went through the roof. Money didn't really fucking matter anymore. Nobody had jobs. It was ridiculous. And Amin didn't care. He didn't fucking care. He and his supporters were still living a life of luxury. Expensive electronics, whiskey, fast cars being shipped over from Europe and wherever else they could get them. They didn't give a shit about if people were struggling or not.
Why would they?
No. Even if at the time Amin was growing more erratic, repressive, and corrupt through all of it. So he would constantly call out and disparage other world leaders, calling the leader of Tanzania a coward, prostitute, and an old woman. He was a man, by the way. This is a very Trumpian thing to do, to just start calling out other people because
he sounds like a big child. Hey, you're a big snooty poo-poo head.
Fucking old woman. I could see him standing there calling Bernie Sanders an old woman. I mean, it's just something he would do. I'm surprised he hasn't. He may have. He called the leader of Zambia an imperialist puppet and bootlicker. And this is my favorite. You might get it. You'll probably get a kick out of it. It's completely uncalled for and unnecessary and disrespectful, but it's still funny.
Just like everything else we've talked about for the last 40 minutes. Anyway.
He sent Queen Elizabeth a telegram saying, quote, "Dear Liz, if you want to know a real man, come to Kampala." Pretty much telling her to come get this black dick. There's no word on if she did or not. I don't know. But the offer was there. Get this funny. Black dick, make me King of Scotland, everything will work out just fine.
Would one like one to give one?
Just when I take a fucking drink. So let's get into why everybody's here and listening. The way he would deal with those that opposed him. If he met with someone and he told his underlings to go with them to where he sleeps or give him the VIP treatment, that pretty much just meant to kill the person. But if he told them to give him tea, this meant whippings and dismemberment. But that's a big jump. So what I want you to do is I want you to whip him, and then I just want you to start cutting pieces off of him. That's a big jump to make.
He's like Pablo Escobar here with his yokes. Like, did we score a goal today?
They both had a bunch of money. They both, I'm sure, had hippos around. So
earned their money through import-export businesses.
Yes, a lot of similarities. I'll tell you. White people that lived in Uganda were forced to carry him around on a throne and bow before him in photographs. He's known as the only black dictator to ever have white slaves. So, good for him, I guess. I don't know. Slavery's never cool, but I
get it. Turn the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How the turns table.
Fields have twisted middle side top wise.
A reporter for the Daily Telegraph tells that while he was held in prison, he witnessed 4 of his cellmates killed with sledgehammers.
Ouch.
Yeah.
As in, prisoners... like, is in the band? Or the song Sledgehammer? Or
yes. Peter Gabriel.
Records. Yeah.
Peter Gabriel came to their... Before he was... Yeah. Peter Gabriel came to their cell and just started singing to them, and they all died. which is weird because
Don't
Peter
blame
Gabriel is great.
I'm not a big fan of that song.
No, I like it. I think a lot of the panache behind the Sledgehammer song comes from the Sledgehammer music video, because the music video was, for the time, amazing. Yeah. Stuff like that wasn't being done. So that could be why. Anyway, prisoners were commonly made to kill each other with a variety of tools and weapons, but the sledgehammer seemed to be a favorite of Amin. Even his wives weren't free and clear. His fourth wife, Kay, was allegedly disloyal to Amin, and was discovered to be pregnant by another man. So she was killed, dismembered, and then sewn back together so the children could identify her.
That's lovely. It's like your one from The Nightmare Before Christmas, Sally.
Sally, yeah, just pull one of the arm falls off. I'll just sew it back on. It's fine. All the stuffing came out.
So Sally got laid.
Now, many of his political opponents and enemies were murdered, obviously, their heads cut off. This included the Archbishop of the Church of Uganda, Johnny Luwum. Their heads were then frozen in a deep freezer in the palace in Kampala. And it's said that when he would have dignitaries or guests for dinner, he would have the heads placed on the table as centerpieces.
That's going down in the D&D notebook. Right there. That's just brilliant. Like, in that way.
It's fucking Indiana Jones Temple of Doom type stuff.
Yeah.
The monkey brains, but you just got people heads on the table. At some point, I mean, it's just over the top.
Why is that not done in cursive Strad or Strahd, whatever way you want to pronounce it? Like, where you could easily have somebody who they're buddies with, and
yeah, they didn't think of it. But
here comes the cloche.
I imagine the next time somebody sits down to play D&D with Dan, they're going to find a head on the table where they're sitting at.
We got to work up to that. I know, man. You got to have them build a relationship with the person whose head is going to be underneath the cloche.
Everybody's favorite NPC. They're all buddy, and then all of a sudden, like, hey, we got to go do this thing. Oh yeah, you guys take care. I'll see you later. And then next thing you know, the head's on the table. Oh, destroys everybody. They care more about the NPC than you do about your fellow players. Honestly, really, you do.
Sometimes, yeah, you can.
Sometimes, a lot of times.
Or just introduce animals, pigs. Introduce pig. Nobody cared about my NPCs. They only cared about pig.
Don't fuck with Nebelina. Don't fuck with the pig.
We killed off all the NPCs. Could have killed all the NPCs. Nobody would have cared. We
changed your entire campaign.
Because of one pig.
Because of that fucking pig.
Yep.
People don't want to hear about our D&D. So even sometimes these enemies were completely imaginary, and he had no real reason to suspect of any wrongdoing. Amin would order public executions by firing squad for anyone he felt was plotting against his regime, and even had them televised. Other times on television, he'd dress his enemies in white and then have them beheaded so the blood would pop better on color TV.
Jeez.
I mean, and these are people, most of which didn't actually do anything, weren't plotting against him, weren't trying to get him out of office. They might not have liked him, and they might have been vocal about not liking him, but they weren't actively trying to get him out of, the leadership role. But he just figured they were, so I might as well fucking kill him anyway. Who cares? Whatever. He'd have his victims' bodies tossed into the Nile, literally creating a blood bath. Bodies were constantly seen floating down the Nile from Uganda. At times, a dam on Lake Victoria would be so clogged by bodies, it would cause power outages.
Jesus Christ.
Just you just hear the grinding of gears. You're like, what happened? Tom's stuck in the fucking thing. You get the stick. Somebody get the body stick.
Wesley, get Mama's prime bar.
Around 50,000 disabled people were also thrown to the crocodiles in the Nile. So I'll tell you why. A real quick story. Whether it's true or not, it supposedly is. But apparently Amin's driving through town, one of the towns. He stops, gets out, sees some people playing like a card game on the floor of a store. He decides to join in. Again, one of the people. And he's having a good time. And all of a sudden, the little crowd that is there separates, and a crippled man falls down into the middle of the game. And he kind of gets up on one elbow. He's looking at him in the face, and he just starts cursing him out, telling how horribly that he's supposed to be one of the people and stick up for everybody, and now everything's worse for everybody else. The economy's trash. And Amin just sits there for a couple of minutes and just takes it. He takes it all of it. He's listening to all of it. And he gets up, doesn't say a word, gets up and leaves. Few days later, cars come back through town. They find that crippled man, tell him that if he really wants to be taken care of, if he wants things to be better for himself, to get in. So gets in the vehicle, and they go around and they start posting up like, if you're disabled, if you're missing a hand or a foot or any type of disability, meet at this point at this time, and we'll make things right. So about 50,000 people in Uganda end up getting taken to the Nile and dumped in. Now, a lot of these people can't swim. A lot of these people are mentally handicapped. The people who were able to like hold on to the trucks as they were being dumped in had their hands cut off and they fell in. It was fucking vicious. Disabled people.
They're the biggest threat of all, you see. That's what it is.
Them in their wheelchairs. Yeah. What are they wheeling around for?
They take away all of his Paralympic medals that he has, you see.
Well, you never know. All those wheelchairs, one of them might be Professor X.
That's true.
Yep. And heaven help you if you were an educated African. Amin felt, let's say, emasculated by intelligent Africans since he only had a 4th grade education and honestly wasn't that bright. One of his old rugby teammates said that Amin's body... Huh?
I guessed he wasn't that bright.
Yeah.
Stupid stuff he's up to.
One of his old rugby teammates said Amin's body was like a tank, but from the neck up, he was all bone. So, not... I guess common sense and book smart he wasn't, but he was smart in other ways.
Yeah, I was going to say he's very intelligent in other ways. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, he started purging the country of the quote-unquote intellectuals, students, professors, lawyers, anyone he saw as smart. Amin had famous prison and torture chambers built, actually constructed by the Israelis when they still held out hope that of him, not being a complete nut job.
I'm sorry, hold on a minute. He got them to build torture chambers, and they were thinking, this guy might not be too bad. Let's just give him the benefit of the doubt here.
Yeah, here's the thing. Here's where that smartness that we just said comes in. They were under the impression that they were building him armories.
I'm sorry, but if you get somebody to build a room where the ceiling comes down and squashes down, you can't exactly turn around and tell them, no, it's just a gigantic sandwich press. You got to think there's something weird going on here.
It's like, okay, I understand why we're putting this here and this here. Why do you need the spikes in the ceiling for an armory again?
Yeah. They're co-hooks. Co-hooks. That's what they are.
They're co-hooks. Is that a rack? Is that? Do you have a? Is that? Do you have a breast ripper over there?
No, that's my TV stand.
Yeah, don't worry about it. You don't ask too many questions.
Damn idiots.
So these underground cement caves were built to hold gunpowder, not people. These places are kind of weird. So the entrance was electrified, and the chambers themselves were surrounded by channels of electrified water. So, yeah. Chambers were dark, full of vomit, blood, shit, and each of them held hundreds of people. Now, prisoners would either suffocate as oxygen would run out as bodies piled up inside the cells. Too many people in an enclosed area underground, all breathing the same air. Some of them just died of oxygen deprivation.
All those people farting. Imagine all that farting going on. It's the worst. thing
After
ever.
a while, I mean,
yeah.
You
know what it's like when somebody does it in like in a lift / elevator or whatever the hell you guys want to call it.
Elevator, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. But imagine that, in a room probably about the same size with probably about 3 times the amount of people, and that square footage of an area.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the true torture of this episode. People.
Somebody's got to, at some point, somebody's got to take shit. There's no toilets. You just do it on the ground, and then you got to step in it.
Foot.
Oh God.
Just sitting there, and you just feel the hitting your foot. It's like, oh,
just a plop. You hear it, or even worse, like you hear it happen, and you know it happened close to you because you feel like a splattering on your calf.
Hear the grunt.
I'm so sorry. But see, that's why some would choose to end their suffering and take their own lives by jumping into the electrified water.
No, yeah. I'd hold on to the hand of the guy who just pooped on my foot before I did it as well.
I'd start pushing people. Push them in. Fuck it. Get out of the way. You shit on my leg. Just go. He would fly into rages and order the execution of employees and staff members who displeased him, often claiming they were victims of, quote, accidents. What happened? What happened to Johnny? Oh, he
fell in that bullet.
Accident. He shit himself again. Yeah, I had an accident. An Air France flight from Athens to Paris that was hijacked by Palestinian terrorists in 1976 and forced to land at Entebbe Airport in Uganda. Israeli commandos end up slaying the terrorists and half of Amin's forces while rescuing the hostage. It's widely believed that Amin took out his frustration and humiliation on the failing of this hijacking on a one Dora Bloch, who went missing after being taken to a hospital in Kampala. An informant said Bloch had been shot, tossed into a car with Ugandan intelligence service plates, and her body was found in a sugar plantation about 19 miles from the capital, her face being badly burned in attempts to make identification difficult. It's just an old lady. It's not like this is some Israeli spy. She was in her 80s.
I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I'd believe that he did that then, because why would he bother his ass trying to cover it up when he doesn't give a rat's ass about not covering up any of the rest of it? He's winning it. He may as well walk down and be throwing the people into the Nile himself. Well, why worry about that one person?
True, and he did deny any involvement. But a lot of people speculate that this was him lashing out at the only Jew he had access to. Okay. So, I mean, did he do it or not? He obviously didn't do it himself, but I wouldn't doubt at all that he ordered it because he's just that petty of a man.
Yeah.
So. Shortly after this, though, the British broke off all diplomatic relations with Uganda. They're like, all right, that's the last straw. You and I, we are, up until this point, they were still trying to work with him. Once this happens, they were done. They're out. No more. So, I mean, that might have been another reason to do it. Maybe he's just trying to piss people off. I don't know. Sometimes Amin would simply send out his troops into the part of the country where he wasn't so popular or where his enemies were known to stay and just open fire on the community. Just drive up and just start shooting people for no fucking reason. Yeah.
Again,
it was also...
It still sounds very similar to an awful lot of stuff that happened with...
Pablo Escobar.
Pablo, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if Pablo ever did this part, though. He was rumored to have been a cannibal as well. Now, no idea on how this rumor got started. Probably by him, honestly. But when asked if he ate human flesh, he said, "I don't like human flesh. It's too salty, even saltier than leopard meat." But he also told people that he ate the organs of many men. So, I don't know. Believe what you want. Was he I think maybe he tried it once just to freak some people out, and then he was like, "Oh, I don't like it," and didn't do it anymore, and just told people he did it.
Yeah.
Or alluded to it. But that's just...
it may have just been a rumor that he just fed into then. He was like, yeah I'll go with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes me seem like a terrifying individual who would put frozen heads out as centerpieces on my table. Sure.
Yeah.
I did that. Why not? So in all, anywhere between 300 to 500,000 people died at the hands and orders of Idi Amin during his reign. But what drives a man to do these things? Well, one theory is Amin loved women. He loved women. Many wives, tons of concubines and mistresses, and countless one-night stands. He had well over 50 children. Well, way back in the 1950s, because of his love of women, he contracted the same thing that would be the downfall of so many others, such as Al Capone and King Edward IV. Syphilis. And syphilis, if not treated right, can lead to depression, mania, psychosis, personality changes, delirium, dementia. Not to mention paranoia, which he was becoming more and more. A lot of people are 100% certain that he, during this reign of terror, he was in the late stages of syphilis with the brain disease. The late stages, I don't know, because usually once you hit the late stages, you die shortly after. Like Al Capone, like Edward the Fourth. He doesn't die shortly after this. He lives for much longer. So I don't know if he got some type of treatment that we don't all know about. But
wrap it up, kids.
Yeah. So I talk about how he was becoming more and more paranoid. Well, he'd routinely change his personnel. He'd alter his travel schedules. He'd change his mode of transportation. He'd sleep in different places whenever he could. And honestly, he had every reason to do this. The populace was becoming more and more fed up with the horrible economy. Amin's hold on power was growing increasingly weak. By this point, the late 70s, many Ugandans had fled to the UK and other African countries, while many of his troops had mutinied and fled to Tanzania, his arch nemesis. Desperate to stay in power, Amin used the last option he had. So, in October 1978, he ordered the invasion of Tanzania, claiming they had instigated unrest in Uganda. In an unexpected turn of events for the despot, Tanzanian forces not only fought off the attack, but invaded Uganda. And on April 11th, 1979, just 7 years before my wife's born on that day.
All right.
So, yes. Happy birthday, Stephanie, by the way.
Happy birthday.
Tanzania, on April 11th, 1979, Tanzanian and exiled Ugandan soldiers captured Uganda's capital, Kampala, overthrowing Amin's regime. Given his connections with Gaddafi, Idi Amin at first fled to Libya, taking 4 of his wives and more than 30 of his children along with him. Eventually, they moved to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. He remained there until 1989, where he used a fake passport to fly into Kinshasa, a city that was then Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo. He tried to enter back into Uganda, but the Ugandan government said he could only enter if he was ready to stand trial for his crimes. He wasn't going to do that.
Nope. Turns around.
Yeah, he's like,
see ya.
I would like to come in, please. Did you stand trial for your crimes? No. It just fucks off. Yeah, it's pretty much what it was. So he fled back to Saudi Arabia, where he lived the rest of his life in peace and quiet, not being allowed to get back into politics. Idi Amin died on August 16th, 2003, after multiple organ failures. His family disconnected him from life support at the age of 75. Or 80. Who fucking knows? We don't know how fucking old he was.
204.
Yeah. It was 9. I don't fucking know. But and it's, again, just like we saw with the rape of Nanking. People who do horrible things and then don't ever get punished for it. I mean, the biggest punishment he had was go live a life of luxury in Saudi Arabia, which he did. The life he had in Saudi Arabia, although quiet, was very luxurious. He wanted for nothing. So, you know, whatever. Just another story to piss you off.
Filthy bastard.
Did you look up anything for pop culture? I know there's a little bit for him.
Yeah, I actually saw something very interesting here on the old Wikipedia there to do with his death, where it was David Owen, the ex-British Foreign Secretary, proposed to assassinate him back in sometime during his era between 77 and 79.
Yes.
And which I thought was kind of cool. Anyway, let me see. Where are we? We obviously had the very obvious one of The Last King of Scotland, where Forrest Whitaker plays him, and who else was in that movie again? Was James McAvoy. Great James McAvoy.
We spoke of Professor X just a little bit ago.
Yeah, there you go. It all comes full circle.
It all comes back around.
That's it. But yeah, so I was having a quick gander through some of the stuff where, aside from that, there was a 1974 documentary film directed by Barbette Schroeder, and was made with the support of Amin, though. So obviously I'd say that documentary shows him as nothing but a shining beacon of hope and glory.
A puff piece.
And then there was a couple of other ones then that, let me see, as listed here. There's one here called The Rise and Fall of Idi Amin, which is a Kenyan-made film, and then which apparently allegedly popularized many of the rumors about his brutality, such as the mutilation of one of his wives.
Yep.
And apparently there is another film called Mississippi Masala, which is a film about the romance between African and Asian Americans during Amin's 1972 expulsion of the Asians from Uganda.
Yeah. It's a big, messy thing. There's a lot of like YouTube videos and little documentaries you can go watch about just that particular part of his reign. It's a big clusterfuck. That's all you can really say about it. It's just a huge clusterfuck. So
that sounds, looking at any, like, some of the stuff is crazy. I love the list of nicknames they give. My favourite one being Big Daddy.
He had some nicknames. I didn't get him, but yeah, he had a few. Apparently, Dada, which is one of his middle names, it's supposed to mean like coward or something that he was given, and he turned it into something else. I didn't look too much into that part of it, but there's a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of little documentaries that cover different aspects of it. I tried to kind of piece and parcel it together to give a fairly cohesive story and still give you guys the torture aspect of it. I was looking into more of the torture aspect of it to put in there, but it was really mostly just vague stuff. But I guess you can see why he fits on this show.
Oh yeah, massively.
The guy was a fucking monster. But
complete lunatic.
Yeah.
I never watched Last King of Scotland, actually.
I've never heard of it before this.
I must ask the boss, see if she's watched it. Chances are she probably has. I know she's a big Whittaker fan, so
yeah. So before we go on, just we set our Patreon up the last episode, and we already have. First day we had one, second day we had another one, so we already have some Patreon members. So I'm gonna have a big shout out to our first Patreon member, Inquisitor Willow Quinn Fowler. Thank you so much for your subscription. You'll be having a lot of fun watching the videos, hopefully. And then our first Executioner, Jagovani, which I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Jagovani.
Probably not, considering
probably not.
So bad at pronunciation. It's why you don't have to give yourself such a hard time, because if I cover anything to here, my Irish is deplorable. I had to get somebody over to make sure that, like, I was writing a thing in work, and they had to have a section in it that was like Irish, and it was literally just student and address, and I was afraid I was actually splitting it in half and not actually having the full title. And it turns out I had it broken up where it was like a quarter of a sentence and then another bit. I was like, whoa.
Well, then there's a lot of Irish names, so it's just the pronunciations to everybody over here does not make any sense. Like, how do those letters make that sound?
Yeah. Well, I get that.
Yeah. But anyway, to our 2 Patreon members, thank you so much. If you would like to have the same perks they're having, go to patreon.com/torturepod. But we got a lot of good stuff up there. Some exclusive merch we have for Inquisitors and cult members only. You have the ability to go get the Burger King shirt that was made.
I need to actually order one of those. I haven't ordered my stuff yet. I'm ordering stuff. I'm hoping maybe not next episode, but by the time I get around to doing it, maybe the one after that, I should have. I should be wearing a hat with a nice little letter T on it instead.
Yes.
But,
I can't.
But yeah, I'm gonna have to get I'm 100% getting my Sort Your Fucking Life Out T-shirt.
Yeah,
has to be.
Still working on getting the stickers. I'm looking to like exclusive stickers only for Patreon. So neither of our patrons have gotten their stickers yet because I haven't gotten around to getting them yet because things are just kind of all fucked up economically for us, and we're working on it. But I'm looking at like some die cut hologram type stickers.
I was going to say, like the Pokemon card reflective. Yeah. I was thinking, that's what I was thinking when you first said it, and I was like, that'd be really cool.
Yeah. I'm hoping Willow, as our Inquisitor, stays on for the next 3 months so she can get the mug, because I love the mug that we have.
It's
on our
pretty much, if I'm doing the math right, doesn't it work out close enough to the same price if you're in the EU to order the mug, a different mug? Am I right or wrong in saying that? So just to try and entice people a little bit more, I think the price that you'll end up spending over the 3 months at that level to get your free mug, I think is close enough to if you were to make a couple of orders of items, including postage and packaging.
Yeah.
Because
it's a little ridiculous.
So you actually, realistically, it's like super free when you look at it that way.
The best thing with the mug from Patreon is you don't have to worry about me actually doing it, because you might have to wait for fucking forever for it to get done. Patreon does it automatically. So.
Oh, really?
That's if 3
that's really cool.
If you pay 3 months at the top tier, they will the second your third payment comes in, they will automatically deduct that into the payment for the mug and ship it off. As long as you gave them your address when you signed up, you get your mug. So,
did you send me a picture of that mug?
I did. I believe I did. I can send it to you again.
I am contemplating doing it myself just for the crack. Just to get the mug.
I'm sure I can make put the mug out there somewhere so you can have it.
Yes.
But if you really want it.
Buy myself my mug.
You can get go to our Redbubble. You can get a regular torture mug for those of you that want it. But that's all we got on Idi Amin. He was a horrible fucking guy. I fucking hate him. The fact that I don't know if he was 75 or 80 when he died kind of pisses me off. But that's all we got. So go follow us on Instagram, all the other social medias at TorturePod. Email us, torturepod@gmail.com. If there's anything you would like for us to cover, or if you have any comments, our friend Max Allen was his name. We spoke of him. He emailed us and talked about it on our last show. He wanted to know about pendulum torture and blood eagle. And so I sent him a little email telling him all about pendulum torture and how I thought that it probably wasn't real. I did not get into the blood eagle, though, because we will be covering that at some point soon. And I don't want to have any spoilers out there. If you have any fan art, go ahead and send that to us. I don't really care. I know we want a brazen bull that looks like an easy bake oven. Would be really good. Dan is an eagle carrying the American flag and a assault rifle.
Dan Wick. We're gonna have to try and get that done. Get the John Wick thing, but my face on it instead. Dan Wick. I'm gonna have to try and I'm gonna have to make a couple of phone calls. Ask a couple of people about that.
We can get that done. A horrible looking guy in a gi, so a Synodo. So whatever crosses your mind, whatever you could think of. Fan art, draw it out, send it to us. I would love to put some on a t-shirt.
We should get one of the two of us. That's like the scene from Pulp Fiction. But it's like, say torture one more time.
Say Ling Chi one more motherfucking time. If you like a hand reaching out, painting usurper in blood or something, anything like that, anything you can think of, send it to us. I'll put it on a t-shirt so everybody can, bask in its glory. You can rate and review us on Apple, follow, subscribe, wherever you listen. Head over to our YouTube page, little snippets and excerpts from the show. You can actually see our shining faces and our backgrounds. I got Dragon Ball Z. He's got
never changing.
He's got the most American thing possible
with an Irish face. And you get to see my cat every now and again when she decides she wants to just walk over and jump at me and chirp. So
she was on your lap for quite a while.
Yeah, I just kept getting a tail going like this.
If you would like to donate to the show, you can on either, again, our Linktree, which you can find on our socials, or you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/torturepod, which can also be found in our Linktree. Again, our Patreon, patreon.com/torturepod, or go to our merch store, redbubble.com/people/torturepod, where you can get the merch that we've, been talking about for the past, I don't know.
Some of the stuff is actually really cool. Like, I'm really considering getting a couple of the art prints to go on the wall behind me, which people can't see right now. So just for the Patreon people, I'm going to turn off my virtual background. And then you will see, there you go.
Right.
So that's roughly where like my guitar pedal shells will eventually go. But I'm thinking about getting a couple of the prints to kind of go around, so they have like the T and then a couple of the other ones.
The Gilderay with the spinny cap.
Yeah, and the Search Fucking Life Out one. My wife loves the metal one. The metal torture one
from the Abbassination episode.
And I was like, of all the ones that she was going to love.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Yeah,
I love the all the methods, the first 10 methods that we did down the shirt. I love that one.
Damn it, I got
like
to
the
buy
bacon
a
and
load
bacon
of
and
them
bacon and bacon. Yeah. So a hint for our next episode. Sometimes the key to winning a war is just watching where you step. That's all you're getting. So
I think I
got
know.
it.
I think I know. I'd say
we'll discuss it after the show goes off. And honestly, I'm going to keep it in the recording, so our Patreon, so people who are listening to the extended version of on our Patreon, they'll know too. All right, but that's all I got. So, Dan, any words of wisdom?
Do I ever have any words of
No, but I figure that could be a running thing that we do.
I don't
see
know.
If you ever come up with something.
Put me on the spot here.
Don't shit on the leg of the guy next to you in the cell. That's common decency, I think.
Yeah, that's real, very much on the line of wisdom of like tomatoes and going fruit salad. That was kind of obvious. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something witty. But I'm putting the spot then.
He'll think of something once I turn off the record.
Yeah.
The record button's not on anymore. He'll think of something real good.
Yeah, guaranteed. I'll think of it when I listen back on the episode after it airs.
Why did
I say this?
You'll be like, I should have said this, motherfucker. That should be our next little snippet for Patreon people. Is you just send me voice recordings of the things you wish you would have said. And I'll put them.
I should do that when I'm driving to work, and I'd like, voice note 256 of things I should have said to Kevin during the recording. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all we got. So, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of one another, and we'll see you.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Thank you.